Good afternoon. The lesson from cinema about what is an impactful story is that it's not immediately clear. A distance of 10 years, 20 years is needed before we can arrive at that. And industry typically, the film industry takes what is known as a short view. It's always concerned with the weekend collection, the week it opens, and it declares whether a film is successful or not. Whereas if we shift the question to not how big the opening was, but is anyone watching it after 20 years, then the whole perspective shifts. And the quiet cinema begins to rise. The British Film Institute runs a magazine called Sight and Sound, and it's a critically noted magazine and a serious magazine in existence from very early days of cinema. In 1952, they decided to conduct a poll that early about finding out which is the greatest film of all time. And the film which came out on top was Bicycle Thieves, a film made in 1948, just 4 years before. But what is notable is that it was a simple story. There was nothing spectacular about it. What is the story? A poor worker needs a bicycle for his livelihood. He loses it to a thief. So, Bicycle Thieves. And his son is there with him, and the rest of the film is just them wandering all over Rome, desperate to find this cycle. In the end, he gets frustrated. He pounces on somebody's cycle and wants to run. He's caught, humiliated in front of the child. This is a very human story, voted the best. Subsequently, every decade they conduct, not frequently, but every decade. And the next film was Citizen Kane, Orson Welles, which stayed there for 5 decades before it was displaced by a thriller, Hitchcock's Vertigo. But what happened in 2022 is rather unusual. The film that came out on top was a film called Jeanne Dielman. Very few would have heard about it even now. The full title is Jeanne Dielman, 23, Quai du Commerce, 1080 Brussels. So, character name, address. That's the title of the film. And the film is also as prosaic. There's this widow called Jeanne Dielman. She lives almost a solitary life with her son, middle-aged. Most of the time we see her doing the daily chores, cleaning, cooking. We see her peeling potatoes for minutes. And this was judged to be the greatest film of all time in 2022. The film was made in 1975. So what happened in this space of 47 years? Society took time to catch up. Shantala Karman, a woman, looked at a woman's life with a certain understanding and thought it important to convey that. But society took that long a time to catch up and then rate that film as the greatest film. So this is the way of looking, which I call the long view. Coming to our Indian cinema, is there such a survey? No. Unfortunately, Outlook did one survey, but only once. They asked many directors about their favorite films, but they have not repeated it. Now, I teach a course. I decided to teach on Indian cinema, so I needed a set of Indian films, which are the classics worthy of teaching. So I did my own exercise, and a quick snapshot I can share with you about films which are classics, which are stories which last. And the pattern. What is interesting is the pattern which I discovered that just after independence, there is a cinema of conscience. I call it a cinema of conscience because those films were very idealistic. They wanted to reform society. They were very full of hope. V. Shantaram kind of filmmaker. He made those films. But then soon after, a decade later, what happens is romance. People don't want to see that. They want romance, escape, an evening in Paris, love in Tokyo. That's the era. But again, that doesn't last. So it's very interesting when you see in this snapshot. That doesn't last. What comes up? The angry young man. Why? Society has shifted again. Now escape will not do. People are frustrated, angry. The angry young man doesn't do romance. He doesn't even smile. He carries this pain and trauma within. Iconic character played by you know who. Amitabh Bachchan. I want to point out now two films from this era to show you the contrast. Now, one is Deewar, a classic. What is the story? Two brothers brought up by a mother in extreme poverty because the father has abandoned them. So they take extreme roads. One goes the way of crime, anything for success or power. The other is a principal guy. He becomes a police officer, criminal. It's a setup. In the end, the clash inevitably happens, and the younger son shoots the elder criminal, and elder son dies in the arms of the mother. This is a classic film. Even though it's a mainstream, big stars in it, but it is a classic. I wouldn't include it because some films, become very indexical of that time, and this represents that time. Now, I want to talk about another film, same time period, but a different kind of film. What is the story? Made within a year of each other. Deepa is a PhD student in Delhi. That itself is rare, even now, to have this as a protagonist. But it was done around there, 74, 75. She's a protagonist. She has a boyfriend, Sanjay, in Delhi. She comes for a job interview to Bombay, meets a former boyfriend of her younger college days, Naveen. Now she finds herself comparing the two, subconsciously and consciously, who she should go with. When she's back, she has to resolve this, and she does. The film is called Rajnigandha. Some of you guessed it. Now, if you ask me, choose one of the two as a classic, I cannot. I have to include both. One has superstars, the other, nobody knew Vidya Sinha, Amol Palekar at that time. Yet the film did well, it ran well, and earned for the producer. Now my question is this, will Rajnigandha survive today? And I think it's no, it will not. Why? Because what I've called this age of gigantism has overtaken everything, including cinema. Everything is has to be big. What is gigantism, More is more. Bigger is better. You go on adding, So the same thing in the kind of cinema that is being made is everything has to be huge. It has to be so overpowering that it's like a tsunami, of let loose on people, like sensations. Every sensation must be occupied, leave no room to think, to pause, to imagine. That's the cinema. So how will a quieter film survive. Not only that, the amount of money that goes into it, then there's this anxiety to recover it. So what they do, they want to occupy every screen available. Every theater, every screen. That anxiety drives it, I understand. But where it is coming from is this overreaching gigantism, which wants to swallow everything. So that's the concern about stories that will shape tomorrow. Will there be space for a quieter film like Rajnigandha? Ironically, it has become easier to make such a film like Rajnigandha. Why? Because technology has moved so much that you can do it at a fraction of the cost. If you do with unknown actors, because it's all digital now. But cinema, unfortunately, has not gone there. It has gone in the maximal direction, more and more. Whereas you could make 10 Rajnigandhas now for the price of one. Now, that's the question, why that is happening. But interestingly, as somebody who watches the medium, technology has, as you know, gone and created an explosion of creativity, not in cinema, but the other side, the creative economy, creators. It's a new thing, your YouTube videos, podcasts, reels, there's an explosion. That has happened again because of technology, where anybody who wants to tell something is able to do it. That empowerment, that democratization that technology has brought has happened there, but not in cinema. So that question kind of is in front, why it is so. And we wanted to, because I'm technically comfortable, I thought we should make a feature film using this ease which it has given, which creators are using. What if one of the creators wants to make a film? We'll make a film. We released it in theaters, because I feel cinema is cinema in theaters. It should be watched in a darkened hall. There should be a sense of community. But firsthand, I discovered what are the problems. You don't get shows. We got 2 shows in Mumbai. I went to one of them, 12:30 p.m. Cinepolis. 12:30 p.m., not an evening show. That's what happens with all such films for 1 week. So I tried to do my own little investigation. I thought hardly anybody will be there because zero marketing. But there were some 18 people. So I asked them, why did they come to see this film? I asked one by one, went up to them. It's interesting what came out. One gentleman said that he makes it a point to see such films because he knows the big budget, the star ones, they'll be predictable, he knows what to expect, but he always finds something fresh, something new, good content. And every week he looks for such a film. Interesting. I asked a couple, they said, वो दूसरे film का ticket was 800 rupees, this was 200. So we chose this one. Wonderful, ठीक है. So now if you see this, ticket price and content, good content, is already coming together with this kind of cinema. But then we didn't have any marketing budget at all. So we don't have budget to make, we don't have budget to market also. Anyhow, the lesson is that if this can be solved, then there is a chance. And I think you're all management students, you know what the problem is. NFDC decades ago tried to address this problem of good cinema. Government got a conscience, we should do something for good cinema. And they floated these finance corporation which became NFDC. What did they do? They helped. Great films are made, they helped filmmakers, otherwise those films would not have been made. Films like Bhuvan Shom, Garam Hawa, Jaane Bhi Do Yaron, those are the classics. But they made a big error. Like us, they focused on making. They did not think of distribution. And they thought its whole thing doesn't work. Now NFDC has abandoned that mandate. But I think it's this error, that in management you know that you have to complete the chain, value chain. You can't just make a thing and then hope some miracle will happen. And so there is a model. The model is been done in Japan. You have mini theaters, 80 to 100 capacity, have a cafe there, sell samosas for 50, not popcorn for 400, and create a culture where people will come. Even with half or 40% occupancy, it will work. It has been done in Japan successfully, and they are focused on distribution of such films. It can be done in India. Nandan is a single theatre, but it has managed this model for years. And in Kerala, state corporation is doing it, I believe. So it can be done, and somebody should take this up, nationwide. Small chain of theatres which are meant, they can have year-long programming. So at the end, I want to leave you with a thought about why this is important. Martin Scorsese is a well-known filmmaker. He made Taxi Driver, small films, then became this big budget director. He paid a tribute to an Iranian filmmaker. And this is what he said, Kiarostami represents the highest level of artistry in cinema, and I was quite taken. He is a blockbuster filmmaker regarding a poet of cinema as the greatest filmmaker in his eyes. Why? Because he says, when I saw his films, I felt the same impact 65 years later. He had seen Bicycle Thieves as a child of 6 in 48. He carried that, and he says 65 years later, this cinema did that to him. You see the impact on a filmmaker like him. A seasoned filmmaker is moved, is inspired, and is again touched by the truth of this cinema. That is why this cinema is important. It will nourish people, nourish the soul, and also nourish the next generation of filmmakers. And if we lose that, then I think we have lost cinema. I think that's it. Thank you.